It's a beautiful day, and we actually have quite a few people in attendance. Thank you. Or maybe we are sorry that you have to work.
Yeah.
But it's Friday and before the very long break, at least here in Latvia. Something to envy. And today we're going to talk about subject matter experts and how to deal with them. So. It's a topic that has been suggested to us in one of our previous events, and it's actually an interesting one, right? Because it depends very much on the culture. We have worked with Germany and Norway and Sweden and France, United States, Russia, and then all the Baltic states and Poland and. It very much depends on the company, on the country, on the overall culture of the enterprise, how much problems you're going to have with subject matter experts. Anywhere between outright hostility, where you actually have to push them to give you information to build your course, to over enthusiasm, where you cannot get rid of them and they will try and
steal your project.
And try and actually manage your project, create your course and dictate everything, except they don't want to do anything, but they always have an opinion on every slide. So how to deal with all of that, we'll share a few experiences and a few tricks, and we also want to hear your experiences. First of all, wave your hands if you have a camera, or type plus in chat if you can hear us well, which I forgot to ask. Maybe it's okay. Thank you, Edmund.
Yeah, we have pluses.
We have pluses?
Yeah, we have pluses popping in. So,
all right. How to work with subject matter experts so that everyone leaves happy, and that means that not only you are happy, but also the expert, because it's important that they come back and they spread good word and it makes your life easier. So we'll talk about the whole life cycle of a project here. But the first question is actually to you. So what's your problem? Do you type in chat if you have a problem with subject matter experts, or if you ever had someone who was not friendly or did not do, or like I said, overly enthusiastic or anything. So what's the one thing that you would like to fix about your experts? Anyone? Is everyone still sleeping a little bit? I know that there are a few people from INTEA as well, and I know you've had your share of ordeal. You can share as well. Don't hesitate.
Don't hesitate at all. Yeah, and I also hope that everybody here, since you subscribed and came, you understand what is subject matter expert, right? So let's. We have Edmund sharing that too much work with them because of a lack of instructions and process documentation.
That's a problem and a solution in one, basically. So, but that's true. The work with experts is often chaotic because it's not documented well, right? The production process can be documented well, the actual training development, but when you involve people from outside or maybe if you don't have the documentation, but your training department is actually very well organized, then you all know how it's done. But then you bring in someone who doesn't have that experience or that same work ethics and so on, and everything becomes a problem. So try to overmine. Okay, so well, they are experts. That is natural that they think of them as experts, and they don't think of you as an expert because you are not an expert. So that's a popular problem. Not open to feedback and suggestions. Yes, very true. Experts focus on facts and information, not training. That is an excellent one.
Yeah, that's probably one of the major ones.
Yes, the focus on information and on all information. All right. Yeah. So I've prepared a few things that we have encountered in the past. So. And you will notice that it's split into groups. So problem number one, probably that we always see, is too much material. You come to an expert and they say, whoever is being trained, they have to become an expert, just like me. They don't want people trained, they want people to become experts, and they've spent 20 years in doing so. So they either don't believe it could be possible, but they need to, or anyhow, they want to bring in as much information and facts into the training. Then the next point is difference of opinions, right? So they might not always agree to what you are doing. That's also a problem, that they have their own view on the training. Maybe they are stuck in some ways that they're used to. Maybe especially if they are like a senior expert that has been maybe making training before and so on. So it's very difficult to innovate with them. Then perfectionism. Also, when let's say, yeah. So here's I'm translating this from Latvian, but here is an example. So if you want to write a car in a course, then an expert will stop you and tell you that you need to write a vehicle.
Yeah.
Because a vehicle involves cars and motorcycles and bicycles and trucks and so on and so on. In Latvian, the words are even longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of writing a car, you have to write a vehicle everywhere, and your texts become much less readable. When it comes to finance, you can't say just money. You have to say assets, because assets involve money and something else and something else and something else, even if it's 90% money, even if it doesn't really matter, and you're trying to say that the idea of a loan is when someone loans you money and then you have to repay that back with interest. They will stop you and say, well, first of all, not money, as we've discussed before in our last meeting.
Yeah.
And secondly, with or without interest, it still counts as loan.
Yeah.
And we're like, please, can we just focus on the training here?
Yeah.
Yes. And we're training kids. It's like 5th graders, and they don't need to know. So they want everything to be super perfect, and in terms of
it's a cultural thing, actually. Having worked in so many countries and in so many languages, you see that it's a cultural thing, because in certain countries there is a fear that if the course is not phrased like the law, that kind of like an anti-money laundering, I don't know, legislation, and then the course has to have all the same notions, all the same terms. So in some countries, cultures, that would be a norm, and it's very hard to do something about it. And then there are countries, for example, US for that matter, where it's fine. I mean, where the essence prevails more often. So it's and again, it's a company culture, it's a country culture, so you have to be aware of that. Yeah, but that fight against legal language is one of the major ones.
Can I disagree a little bit? I think it's less dependent on the culture and more dependent on the area that the expert is from.
Area,
because if you like you mentioned, I understand that AML is a big topic for you right now. But AML is done by lawyers, more or less, or by people from this compliance kind of. They have legal mentality, right? So they want everything to be like phrased perfectly. If you talk to people from manufacturing, they don't care what kind of hammer it is, as long as it hammers nails in, and they're much easier in that sense. So I would say it very much depends. Like probably legal. My top 3 arch enemies among SMEs are legal, accounting, and IT. We had this case when we were talking about, we were building a course for one of the banks on how their remote banking works. It was in the times when telephone banking was still around. Yeah, it was. Well, it was kind of obsolete even then, but. They said that you can authenticate something by IP. And we said, well, not everyone knows IP. Can we just put in a little hotspot there, which you can click and check what IP actually stands for? And said, yeah, sure. And we wrote IP is actually the unique address of your computer. And then they said, okay, can we just check with IT real quick if that definition is correct? And then we went into like a week-long battle with IT to include a micro course on how internet works and what IP actually stands for. And it can easily derail the whole project. So I still remember. Yeah, and also problem with experts, they're generally not very much fun, and they are like anti-fun. So when you try to say, okay, I want my course to have this kind of bells and whistles maybe, or I want this to be fun, or we want here characters, maybe we want to add some humor in there, and so on. They're like, humor? What, are you crazy? People died because of that. Like, you can't do humor here. And so that's group one, right? Group two of experts is where you don't have enough material. They're like,
or it's out of date.
Out of date, yes, as our chat has suggested. It's so not enough quality material, let's put it this way. They're not very much motivated. They're like, I will get to that, and never get to that. You have to hunt them, chase them. You send them something to proofread. They don't come back ever, and so on. So they're not really motivated. They never have enough time to meet with you, to work through your scripts. They're always angry. You try to push them, they push back, and it becomes kind of an uphill battle. And they're very resistant to change, right? They're like, we have been doing this, classroom training with my PowerPoint for years, and it's working, and why do we even need this? Sometimes, like, they want to be able that you steal their material. They're like, I've been doing security training in our company for the last 60 years, and now you're gonna switch to online, and I'm gonna be fired, or I will retire. And we're like, yes, that's the whole point, frankly. And they're like, no, I still have a couple of years in me left. So that can become a problem.
Even if we're not talking about retirement, of course, then that's this loss of control.
And political power inside the organization.
Yeah, because being the one who is so hard to get and who can only do training 3 times a year, it of course gives you status. So the loss of status is the important thing.
Those two groups of experts, they're not mutually exclusive, unfortunately. You can have too much material while not enough quality material. You can have perfectionism with low motivation. So so do these feel familiar?
Just type a plus in the chat so that
if you feel like this sounds like someone you might have known today or in the past. All right, so let's move on. Now, one thing that we all have to admit, we just have to accept that, is that subject matter experts are experts only in the subject matter, nothing else. They're not experts in training, and they're not paid to do the training. They're not motivated. They might be very skeptical about training. They might not be very, okay, we're all friends here. There might not be very smart people outside of their subject matter area. They might lack what's known as emotional intelligence, for example, right? So there's like sheer, intellectual intelligence, how do you call that?
It's an emotional intelligence. And there's IQ and EQ,
So the IQ might be super high. They might be a great expert in underwriting, in insurance, or in all types of steel pipes in steel pipes industry. But they're not very friendly or sociable, or they are not cut out to be trainers. And sometimes I would say, to be an expert in a certain field, you probably have to be a little bit introvert and unfriendly to everyone, and things like security and things like legal stuff and compliance, they kind of ask from you to be that bad cop.
They ask for you to be perfectionist, attention to detail, know it all, be an expert. So you are right. It's a bit of a occupational hazard there, but I would say that, of course, we are not talking here about all of the experts. It's more about the extreme cases, but of course, the extreme cases create the most problems for us all. And one dimension,
all of them.
Yeah. So I think the one idea is, when you think about subject matter experts in the very, very beginning, is to separate those who do at least some kind of training work and those who do not do any training work at all.
I would say that number one, you look at is experience with training, and you have to be you have to beware of the people who don't have experience with training. So if the expert is actually the trainer who does the training, then at least you share something. If the expert is like purely expert and never done training, and you're the first one to actually dig it out of them, or they had bad experience, then that's a problem. And I would say that newbies are the most enthusiastic, and this is where the problem lies. They don't know anything about training. You come to them, you sell them on training, and they're like, yeah, this is an excellent idea, let's do that. And then you never get rid of them. And then and they want more and more and more and more, and they want like this better, and they don't understand how training actually works, and you actually have to deliver. And that we all, let's admit it, we live by the motto of better done than perfect. And they don't share your pain or deadline, or they don't hear the voices of hundreds of people asking for the next course to be built. So those are the dangerous ones. So yeah, let's all agree on that. They are not experts, right? And also keep in mind that very often they're not paid or don't have any incentive to actually work with you. So it's kind of pro bono activity for them that they do outside of their own hours, and they might be very busy people. That you have to actually understand what's in it for them, and explain and sell it to them. Remember, we talked about sales language last time, I think, or
a couple
of breakfasts before. So you have to actually phrase everything you do in terms that will resonate with them immediately, right? So what's in it for, and then you actually have to put in those things that, is there a reward for them? Like, is it power? Is it recognition? Is it just a thank you? Is it just the fact that you are not going to spend a lot of their time? Is it that, yes, we all have to do that? No one is here because we're enthusiastic about anti-money laundering. We're here because it needs to be done. So let's get over with this quickly, and so on. So get on their side. And then you either train them, you teach them about, like you mentioned, the documentation processes. Either you trick them, there are tricks that we'll share, or you motivate them. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. So these three things are basically what we're going to discuss today, and what it takes to do that. So you don't. One thing you don't do is you don't expect them to be on your side automatically and share your goals just because it's good for the company, for example. So the first thing that we wanted to start with is about training, right? So if we agree that experts are not experts in training, let's train them just a little bit. So there are a few things that you need to talk. So when you meet them for the first time, set expectations, right? They don't know what e-learning is. So bring a few courses that you think will work in this situation and show them. It becomes something tangible immediately that helps you work with them, like on something concrete. Because when you say e-learning, whatever imagery that appears in their head is uncontrollable by you. So instead, bring them a course and tell them, okay, this is the course we have done with that other department on that topic, and we think that this could be something similar. See, it begins with a character, and they have a problem, and there is a case that we discuss, and then we talk about documentation, and then we show them an example of how everything is done in the ERP system, where you have to create the invoices and so on. So in this case, we want to do something similar, and they're like, okay, and you start talking, right?
Yeah.
So
here I would say a very good strategy is to a little bit treat them like kids. You don't give kids 55 options of what do you want to have for dinner.
Yes.
Or you don't have an open-ended question saying, okay, so what kind of course are you looking for? That will lead you to all those places you don't want to get to. So I do suggest not to provide them more than with 2-3 options. Yeah. And because as Sergey said, when you say the word e-learning, some will think about, some will imagine long PDFs, the other person will imagine videos, and he will be expecting videos until the end of the course because nobody told them that there won't be any videos.
Yeah, and when they wrote the script and they read the script, they will just ignore things they don't understand, like clicks and reveals, and hotspots and quiz. They're like, okay, but where's my text? And they look at there and they like that, and then they see it written and they're like, what? Like, what? When are you coming with the camera?
Yeah, exactly. So set expectations, provide those examples, and very important,
limit their choice.
Limit their choice and document their choice.
Yeah, so I agree on paper, right?
Yeah.
So keep a paper trail so that you can come back to them and say, okay, but this is what I've sent you, and this is what you replied, and this is what we have. Even if with those conversations that you've had, put them on
the email,
on an email. Just send them to confirm, and even if they don't reply, they have that in their email. You can refer back to that. Yeah, and speaking of kids. You know, when you come into a car dealership and they don't ask you, like, do you want to buy a car or not? They ask you, like, which car do you want to buy?
Yeah.
And when you've had a conversation with them, they don't ask you, so are you ready to buy this or not ready?
Yeah.
They say, okay, so what color do you want this in? Gold or silver?
Yeah.
And this is kind of the level of conversation you have to keep with an expert. So if you decided that it's going to be a video course, you're like, okay, so which video do you think is best, video with you, or we actually hire a professional actor who does the work, and so on. And you don't ask them, like, do you think video is a good idea? You actually know what's a good idea. So yeah, then how to guide. Essentially, you have to actually sit down and write for that because it's very specific. But essentially, this is like a training manual for them, which answers questions like, what if you find a mistake in a course? What if you get new information while we're building that?
What if your boss in the very end of the process takes a look at your training? I mean, the boss of the SME, and tells you he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Or her.
Yeah. What if you cannot make something in time, and so on? Just, you know, a few simple terms that you can go and check when you have that conversation, because like even here in our company, this is more of a cultural thing. But again, you have this culture clash between subject matter experts and training, because chances are you've never met before. So what we had in INTEA a few years back, when we grew quite rapidly and we brought on like more than a dozen people in a very short term into our company, we found out that people come from very different backgrounds. Some people come from a background where anything written in an email doesn't count until someone comes to you and says it needs to be done. Because, you know, emails come like they are not even paper, right? In other cases, people ignore any conversation that you had with them until you put that in writing, because this is the background that they had, and they will say, yeah, okay, well, yeah, we did discuss that, and yeah, I totally agree, but yeah, I'll start doing that when I get it through email, because, you know, how else could it work? And those two people now start working together, and there's a problem. So we had to devise like it's not even an HR strategy, it's a little how-to on how we work. What matters, what takes precedence, how fast you have to respond to things. Like, do you have to pick up phones from your colleagues when they're calling you outside of working hours? Should you call is it okay to call your colleagues outside of working hours? How fast should you react to something in chat? If someone asks you, how fast you should react to something in email if someone asks you, and so on, so that people have a common understanding. Nothing super serious, enormously helpful. So having something like that for your expert is we call it actually communication strategy, because in each project they might be very, very different, with a very different amount kind of number of people involved, both internally and also externally. So we always discuss that, especially for the big project, how we will communicate, so that we don't run into things like 8 o'clock on Friday, the expert calls and says, you know what, I'm now reading your script and I wanted to discuss this and this and that. So it's important to set the rules. Yeah, how fast you're responding to them, how fast you expect them to respond. And also, can they even talk to you? We've had this problem when the experts don't want to talk to you directly because you are outside of their organization, and they will only talk to their training manager. Maybe that's okay, maybe that has to be fixed by the training manager, but by default, they will assume that you are an outsider, much like an electrician who is doing some work around. like some tech guys, and they don't even
consider you
consider you to be worthy of an answer if you send them an email. So you have to go through the training manager all the time. Okay. So one thing that we've already mentioned, offer them a menu, right? So show them what they can choose from, so that they can, like, don't discuss, like, show them, but keep that menu limited, right? You don't come to a restaurant where a chef asks you, like, what do you fancy tonight?
No, of course, because as with restaurant, where
there's a technology behind that.
Technology behind
that.
To
have the ingredients.
And also there is the budget behind that.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us, when we go to a restaurant, we do imagine the maximum amount of money we're going to spend. So any project, even with some, flexible budget, has certain ceilings. Yeah. So you have to back engineer based on the budget. What is it you put on the menu for that person?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, and we've already jumped to that. So experts participate in only certain parts of the process, but you have to kind of uncover that process for them. You have to explain where it starts. And let me remind you, it actually starts with training needs analysis and setting business goals that will be solved by training, hopefully, and then setting learning goals, and then actually maybe even 2 steps beyond that, experts get involved, and then experts get devolved from or maybe not. Maybe they have to sign off on the final course, as it happens sometimes. Maybe they gave you the information and don't care anymore. Maybe they will sign off on the final script and will not see the final training. It depends. So explain their involvement. We've had cases where we've talked to the experts for like 2-4 hours, and they were like, well, okay, thank you. So it's 19th of June. So we'll see you in September. And they're like, in where? And we're like, yeah, so this is where it's going to be ready, and we'll have to take another 2 hours of your time. And they're like, what? I thought like we're going to be building this like all summer. And we're like, yeah, we will be building this all summer. You won't. And they're like, excellent. I did not know. That is such great news. Yeah. So they thought they're going to be working with us like every day. So, and they were quite unhappy about that. Just as much clarity, as much being on the same page as possible, involve them in the whole process, show them their part and define their part. Because you have to both set expectation for how much they need to be involved and also set the limit for that as well.
Absolutely. And the big word here, I would say, is professionalize what you're doing, because experts respect only one kind of people, experts. So if you do not professionalize what you're doing enough to show that, training might be a soft subject, but there is certain machinery to it, certain process, certain qualities, certain ways to do that. And it's not like we're sitting here and fantasizing about every project, but we have a process. They will start to respect you, and they will start to see you as an expert. And if they will ever say, okay, I know, Alex, you're an expert in e-learning, you've got them, that they will be using that word.
Yeah.
The E word.
The E word. Okay.
All right. That's my favorite.
All right. So a few notes on how to approach them from what we've learned. Well, keeping in mind everything that we've discussed so far, things you need to do before you actually go into that first meeting or you have that first contact. Well, first of all, let's hope that this is a meeting, right? So try and set up a face-to-face at all times. But today it doesn't always happen for practical reasons and so on. But first of all, I think that is important as a show of faith, sort of. Try and understand the subject matter. So if you're building something on anti-money laundering, there's probably some 101s on basic AML principles. Like there is like some basic information from some company that is trying to sell you something on internet on everything. Right? At least it will give you some lingo, some terminology, some abbreviations that you are not aware of, and you will have to look up and so on. And it will both save everyone time a little bit. Also, it will give you a very good idea of what normal people don't understand. You're a normal person, and you are now trying to read about. Can we not stick with AML? Give me another.
Yeah, offshore containers.
Offshore container. Perfect. why are they offshore? Like, do they float? And that's question number one, right?
Yeah.
So if you have that question, chances are that the learners will have that question, unless you're training kind of people who have you have to understand your audience. But then it helps you understand what those underwater rocks are, what's an let's say OCU, which could be like offshore container unit, or Oklahoma Carolina University, anything. So try and read into that. If you have any materials from experts, anything on the internet, really helps to show that you are actually interested in that, and don't come like it's like a journalist. You don't come to an interview and say, okay, so tell me what is that you do.
So what is an electric car?
Yeah,
you go and
Mr. Musk.
Mr. Musk, tell me what's an electric car. You don't do that.
Yeah, or you don't ask like in interviews, like journalist interviews, you try to avoid asking the question that had been asked like a million times before. So if you read previous interviews, you probably want to avoid from asking the same thing. So like, how did you become an actor?
Yeah, I mean,
like
Morgan Freeman, tell us
how did you become an actor?
Yeah,
try to read up. Then, as we said, share the project plan and content plan and examples, right? So have that with you, and have that in a form of presentation, because you want to demonstrate that you are not wasting their or anyone's time, and this is going to go professionally and smoothly. So you come to them and you bring out like a presentation. You don't go through your own Basecamp or Jira or Trello or SharePoint or whatever, Dropbox on the go, trying to dig up and so on. You show them a slide saying that this is the project time plan, this is where everything goes, and this is what we're going to do. Show them the content plan, because you have an idea probably before you start getting what they need to be trained on. You have set business goals and learning goals, right? So you understand what needs to be done. So
another way to approach it, because sometimes the projects are driven by the SMEs themselves. Yeah, that's very often. Okay. It's not the training that initiates because of the business needs, but it's the team of experts or the department responsible for anything in the company can initiate the training need. For those situations, I strongly suggest to have a form. Let's call it training request form or e-learning request form, and let them fill in their business goals, their learning goals, their learning outcomes, their kind of main topics, so that they limit themselves in the beginning of the project, because whatever they've written has more power than anything you've written.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, correct. This is basically the situation where SME is actually the client, and you have to start treating them like a client, and then we take those things a couple of steps back, and you maybe don't even have a project plan, but then you have a sample project plan. You don't have a content plan, but you have a sample content plan from a different project, and then you have that training request form, essentially the main document of INTEA that we come with, and we start filling out. So who is that we're training? What are we trying to achieve? What is the current situation? Can it be solved by training? If then what? And so on. What are the outcomes? So on and so on. And then you agree on those things. How much time can that person spend in training?
Absolutely.
Because if you're training senior management, you don't expect them to spend 40 hours on your training program, right? And so on. And yeah, always relevant examples, reference material. It shows you that you've done this before. You don't look like the two of you are going on a journey together, and but no one has ventured before.
Absolutely, and tell them stories.
Success stories.
Yeah.
And warning stories.
And warning stories. Because this is the same. You are again in a sales situation. You are selling something. You're selling an idea, an approach. Do what all the others do when they're selling their products. Storytelling is one of the selling techniques nowadays, very popular. Tell them a story, because you definitely have very good examples of e-learning projects going smoothly. So explain them why it went well, and frame them, prime them into that way of working. At least for me, that works really, really well, that I explain how that big project went really well, and explain them what not to do or what to do based on that.
Tell them scary stories.
And then tell them a scary story.
It was a Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Late at night.
Yeah.
And one little girl decided to send in feedback. All right. So prepare questions. Come prepared. Don't come to an expert saying that with a phrase. Okay, so what do you want to tell me? Like, tell me what they need to know. Like, come with specific questions based on your content plan. You say, okay, we need the case of that project, of that product. Like, you're a product expert. You understand how the, let's say, business travel insurance works.
Yeah.
Right. So give me a case. Like, explain. Like, I'm a businessman. I have a company that has 100 people. I want to buy your product. Like, why? What's in it for me? Sell it to me. And they will explain to you. So then you say, okay, what we need to do is to show them the process of how a contract is signed, right? So can you walk me through a contract signing, right? You don't come to them and say, okay, so how this whole thing works. They will not know where to begin because they know so much and so deep. That's their problem that you are actually trying to solve. You are trying to be the filter that filters and digests information that they have and helps them pick it in and put it into a specific order that is optimal for training of people of that level for that specific purpose. So prepare those questions ahead of time. Don't let them drive the conversation. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, set up a face-to-face if you can. Set up a Zoom call. Don't avoid first contact by email by all means. It comes at the wrong time, you're screwed for the rest of the project.
Absolutely.
All right. So now a couple of people have mentioned, and as I said, this has been our biggest point of conflict probably with experts, and not even like experts and clients sometimes, and anyone who's in the senior, all-seeing and all-encompassing position, is that they want everything included in the course. So there are a few ways how to avoid that conflict, direct confrontation of saying, no, this does not go into the course, or this does not belong, or they don't need it. Because who are you to tell me what they need or not? Yeah. Let's look at who has the E word on them.
Yeah, and the phrase "everything's important."
Everything's important.
Yeah, that's
when you come to them and say, okay, so what's important about this product? And they're like, everything's important.
Yeah.
Trick number one from the very beginning: avoid existing materials. If they tell you, okay, I'm going to send you all my PowerPoints, or I'm going to send you this training deck that we've had, or we have this old e-learning course, and so on, try and just avoid that. If you can't do anything, just come to them and say, yeah, I forgot to the printout. Let's start from scratch. So because existing material is probably not good. This is why you are here. And it will tie you into something that has been not done professionally, that has been like it's
you'll be trying to there are two approaches to building a course, at least this is how we at INTEA think about it. One is trying to what we call putting lipstick on a pig, when you take the existing material and you try to enliven it, recuperate it and
rearrange, maybe cut out things.
Yeah. Because and that works for the cases where material is really, really good and it matches the audience, and so it's a valid strategy. But the most complex, the most demanding, the most pressing trainings for the company, the most strategic trainings usually suffer from that approach. And as Sergey said, try to talk it through from scratch.
Yeah. Now, number one trick, we've mentioned it in one of our previous breakfasts, is action mapping. So we will not go in detail. If you're super interested in that, just let us know in chat. We'll send you a link with the time code. By the way, we have a YouTube channel now. So map all information to learner actions. The idea is that the expert brings you this huge sea of content. and you have to understand and agree what's relevant and what's not. And how do you decide if everything is important? So like one way to approach that is to say, okay, so those learners who need those, um, um, let's say baggage handlers at an airport, what do they need about baggage handling when they come, and what do they actually do? And they will explain that they scan the baggage, they put the baggage into the right places. If the baggage is not scannable or otherwise lost, they put it into a different place and fill out a form. They count something at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. They do this, and that. You map out all this information. Maybe you put it on a timeline, or you somehow put it into a circle if it's a circular process, and so on. And then you say, okay, so to do this, to scan a bag, what do I need to know? And they will say, well, you need to know how to operate the scanner. Perfect. And you need to know what a code is. And then in our process, we have code scanned successfully and unsuccessfully. So what do I need to know? If it's unsuccessful, you fill out a form, right? So what do I need to know to fill out the form? Well, you need to know this, and that, and you have to know how to identify a bag and describe it, because there is a certain system how they actually describe bags, and so on and so on. And in such a way, you just add those pieces of information like meat on a stick, and anything that is not pertinent to that action that learners are actually doing in real life is not relevant. It is not relevant by default. It's good to know. It's excellent if they knew that, then they would be experts. But for the purpose of this training, this is not relevant. And if it's not actionable, it's not relevant. So that's it. That's a very good way to actually structure this conversation and at least sort this information into two piles, and then look, maybe if they are so keen on looking at that other pile, you can have another look, but at least it gives you some objective criteria of deciding. Another way that you have probably seen in language training. Like in language training, you have a lot of levels, right? You start at the basic level where you can just say, hi, my je m'appelle Serge, and so on. I've actually done one French lesson in my life. When I was,
and you've learned something.
Yeah, just really sent. I was in Lyceum. So I liked that girl, and when we were deciding which language to go to in like 8th grade, I said, well, I'll take a look at whatever she chooses and I'll go there just to be there, like we all are in like our 14 years. And she chose French, and I went there, and I was the only boy in there, and I was so super shy of that fact, and also didn't like the teacher, and said, okay, my love life will will suffer, but we'll deal with it anyhow. And I left. So, but I had 40 minutes of French in my life. Anyhow, so mastery levels. Yeah, define mastery levels. Define kind of what is the super basic. Who are we training this time? Sales guys. Let's say what the very basic sales guy. What does he need to know? Okay, an advanced sales guy. What does he need to know? A superhero sales guy. What does they need to know? An expert. Like define levels and then sort information into levels, and then at some point just stop. Just say, okay, excellent. We have taken all your information. We have put it into levels from 1 to 5. And in this training, we're doing training on levels 1 and 2. In future, we'll probably do a training on 3 and 4, and we'll see you there. That's very useful work that we've done. And level 5, you don't want any competition, right?
Yeah.
So let's keep it with you. So you just leave in this bottom levels, but you don't like it's like kung fu. You don't. You use your opponent's strength, right? You don't, when they say everything is important, you say, okay, let's include everything, but sort it into levels, and then I start sorting and just take those 2 levels and put them into
absolutely. And it of course depends on how it all works in a company and how the company is structured, but some of the best conversations with experts were exactly like you were saying, where we were looking at the job roles in the company and taking that material and figuring out, okay, okay, this is a very important fact about insurance, but usually the sales guy will call you as an expert because those cases are rare. Aren't they calling about those cases? Yes, but I don't want to have so many calls. Okay, let's reduce those calls that are really, let's call them stupid calls that they can deal, let's say stupid problems that they can deal with themselves. And let's leave those 3 cases a year where a guy wants to insure a gilded car, and you will be dealing with gilded cars.
What's a gilded car?
With gold, covered with gold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Never had that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll show you. I'll drive you home. Yeah, but yeah, and then because usually I think the problem is that experts, when they want to create a training, they want to solve all of their problems with this training. But usually 20% of the content will solve 90 or 80% of their problem, and that's already very good. Yeah. So, but they are not thinking in those terms very often. Yeah. So that helps.
Yeah, and again, in a well-structured organization, you probably already have some guideline as to what mastery levels are. You have job roles, you have competencies, you have pay grades, and whatnot. So you can start off with that and take all the information, just don't use all the information. So yeah, and then of course the last resort of any instructional designer, when you are losing the battle, try to lose it with dignity and say that, okay, we'll include that information, we'll put it into a separate page, or maybe that information is available in a document on the SharePoint, and we'll link to that SharePoint and something like that, because of course it's important.
Of course it's important. And one thing here is, if you've done your homework really well, then it means you know all the infrastructure, because learning is never separated from the real life. It should not be. So if you know really well what's going on with your learners and what they are using in their everyday work, you might figure out that this read more already exists, and it's a very good read more.
Yeah.
And you can just refer there and cut the training time.
Yeah. Typically, there are 2 places that you want to to think about. One place is actually the homepage, right? So there's this whole marketing department which is over budgeted and overstaffed, of course, compared to learning, and they have people who update the information all the time, and they work directly with vendors and so on. So if instead of describing all the phones or putting them into a PDF that people need to sell the gadgets or whatever, the products, the insurances, the leasings, the bank accounts, it's all very well described on the homepage. And also that homepage might have all that extra information that has to be there legally. So you can say, okay, if it's okay to be there legally for the consumers, then probably it's okay to be there as information source for employees. So if you want to read, like if you think that terms and conditions of this product have to be in our course, let's link to terms and conditions on our webpage, because those are always up to date and always available from anywhere.
Yeah, and nowadays, I mean, when marketing departments do work a lot of with, what is it called, info learning or infomercials, yeah, and things like that, infomercials. Then edutainment, yeah, all those fancy things. But the idea is that they try to enlighten their consumers, and usually they do that in a very good way. So but it's somehow not used in the learning, and then we run into situations where consumers are more informed than the people at the cash register.
Yeah, that happens as well. But yeah, so one place to look for where the information already exists is the homepage. The other one is there's all sometimes, especially about all sorts of systems and so on, your IT guys will have a lot of very nice documentation because it's part of their process. They cannot function otherwise, and it's all documented and it's all already created somewhere. But you don't know about that, you don't use that, and so on. So talk to the IT guys and ask them if they have documentation. They might have documentation and policies for pretty much everything that works in your company, and they might be able to help you, so you don't have to do that. And yeah, okay, it's losing a battle, but it's keeping your face. All right, so let's. So we talked about training, tweaking, and motivating. Now let's finish off. Oh no, training and tweaking. Now we'll finish off with motivating your SMEs. As you might have guessed from the picture, it's making them feel great about their achievement, and that is kind of the idea of this whole part, right? So motivating them to collaborate and collaborate again, especially, is about being human, about having that emotional intelligence on high alert. And you start with understanding the pain points. As you've said, they get a lot of stupid calls. That training will help reduce those calls. Maybe that will maybe the goal of that training, that is not making SME's life easier at all, but it might in the process. Right. So find that pain point for them and tell them. Maybe they are tired themselves of giving the same training over and over and over. Maybe if they're afraid of losing the power and influence, you will say, okay, you will gain more power and influence because now you are, like, everyone is aware of that situation. Everyone will come to you more often because now they just have more awareness of, let's say, ethics, conflicts, or code of conduct or something like that. So try and understand to understand what motivates them. Try to find their pain, and then try to show how your learning will fix that pain. And that pain can be quite come from unexpected places. And then you establish a common goal, right? So you say, okay, so we are on the same side. Sometimes experts assume that you are somehow on the other side of this process, right? Just to explain to them that you have a common goal. You might appeal to something like mission, vision statements of your company. You might appeal to anything that kind of works with them. But you have to understand you are moving into the same direction together, and maybe your common goal is to get out of here quickly. You come to them and say, look, I need to get this from you, and I don't want to spend more time than I absolutely need to, and I don't want to waste more of your time than I absolutely need. So let's be friendly. Let's do this quick and organized, and in those 3 simple steps, and forget about each other until the next time. Works well? Yeah, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to spend as little time as possible. Help me.
Absolutely.
Could be a common goal. Drive the conversation. So as we've established, SMEs are not self-motivated to do the training. In many cases, it goes against a number of their motivations. So you have to be in the driver's seat. You don't ask them, like, how do you think this should be done? Like, think about, 2 examples. Either kids that don't want to eat, are not motivated to learn, and so on. And you don't ask them, like you don't phrase it like, are you in the mood for homework tonight, honey? You ask them, like, have you done it? You can assert yourself, or be a salesperson. And again, salespeople don't give you options that don't work for them. All the options that they give you will eventually lead to a sale. So drive that conversation. You are the project owner. You are responsible for making that happen. You are enlisting people's help to do that, and that's on you. And they might be expert. They could be a bloody CEO, but in this case, this is your project. And last but absolutely not least, give credit. Like, experts love credit. Experts love being mentioned as experts. Say thank you. If you can do that publicly, do it publicly. When you launch the course, thank you, dear this and that, for helping us. That help has been invaluable. Have you read a book? It starts with thank you to my wife and children who did not take part in this. Thank you to my editor. Thank you to my publisher. Thank you to my professor there and here. And so on and so on. So do that in your courses. It doesn't take much, but do give credit to people, put their names and photos on there. It also gives them responsibility. Like, your name will be on that course. You better provide me quality information. You better take time to read through that and make sure that everything is up to par. and it's what they like. They have done their PhDs
in certain subjects.
In certain subjects, yeah. So give them a little credit for that. Like they don't get too many options, opportunities to boast with that. So that's one thing. And then you can make them a brand. You know, if it's a good expert that you liked working with, come back to them again. Make it a brand. Make sure that your learners actually know that this course is from that expert in finance. Yay, another financial course. We love that because those courses are concise and to the point. And take a 30-second video of your expert, put it in the beginning where the expert explains why that is important, and so on. So make sure that they are attached to this course as well, and also share success. Call them afterwards and say, okay, we've launched it, and in a week 5,000 people went through that, and we've had these comments, these amazing comments. Because you want, like, as we've talked about the marketing breakfast, you want to provoke people to give feedback. You want people to promote your course to each other,
and who else is a better promoter of the course if not the expert himself or herself? Yes. So and of course it depends. Some experts are charismatic and some are not. They're very, very different people, but there's always this angle you can use. Yeah. And to share an example, a client of ours from the learning department, she's very, very successful, and she always she gets kind of any kind of expert she works with. In the end, the project, if it's not a success, it's certainly not a disaster. And I had a chance to talk to her once, and we were talking about this very, very, very difficult person in the company. She's an expert, and she's very, very difficult, and everybody knows that. And when her name is mentioned, and the people are saying that you'll have to work with her, it's always, everybody gets this goose skin and so on. And when this lady from the learning department was talking about it, I understood what's her trick, because she was one of those rare people who could work with this expert. And that was exactly understanding the pain points and showing empathy. So basically what she did with that person, and with any other expert, when she went into those conversations, she was trying to establish those real pain points, fears, motivations, all those things, and trying to relate to that and explain how we can work together.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. It's probably not in the slides anywhere, but that is an excellent idea. Fears, right? So experts, they might be super senior positions. They might know everything about the subject. They might be afraid, and maybe the more senior they are, the more afraid they are of making themselves look like a fool. So that is something that you don't want to accidentally trigger, or that is something that you want to use and leverage to your benefit. You don't want, you come to them and say, well, you don't want your name to be on a course that you haven't read, have you?
Yeah. Exactly, and or even
they might be afraid of publicity. They might be afraid of going on record. They might, and so on. You have to, like, you can be combating about something for a week, only to find out that it's just that they don't want to be in the video. And they will never tell you that, but they will die before that video, that course becomes video course.
Yeah, or simply they might be afraid that e-learning doesn't work, like per se. They just don't believe the concept.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's very important
to explain. They don't want to attach themselves to this.
Yeah, because they haven't seen any course they like, and they think we're now producing another course like that. So that will, and putting a name on that course will kind of harm them. So explain, kind of not only share success in the end, but I think it's also very important for us learning people to professionalize and explain why it will be a success in the very beginning, and what do we need to do to have that success in place.
Absolutely.
And then you can get that buy-in.
Yeah. So to reiterate, train them, trick them, and motivate them, and you'll be successful. So here's a question to you, if you're still with us. Let us know what's the best tip or trick that you've learned today. So one thing that you think was most useful or most memorable. Also, we are actually unsure if we need to do the next one in the next breakfast in July, or should we skip the kind of the summer month. So again, in chat, please let us know right now if you think that we should do something and if you have a topic in mind as well. So even if you don't have a topic, just let us know that we want to see you guys again in 2 weeks, and we'll see. We're now on the fence about it, trying to plan our holidays. So yeah, what's most useful do you want to meet in 2 weeks? Please type in chat.
Yeah, and thanks to all of those who are contributing topics. I know Edmund's contributed at least one or even two topics, and so some other people also writing to us with ideas. Those are very, very welcome, because one thing is, and I don't like to call myself an expert, but because we're working with e-learning every day, we get a little bit, blindsided in a sense that we don't know what people need, what are your challenges, and our challenges might be a little bit different. So so just give us ideas what you would be interested to talk about, to us to talk about, and we'll definitely take that into account. And don't put lipstick on a pig. Yeah, exactly. That's also one of the biggest learning points for so many people in our company, that if it's a pig in the very beginning, if you start with a pig, then putting that lipstick on it will not work very often.
As IT guys say, if you automate chaos, you get automated chaos. So
Same here.
It's all about the basements and the foundations. All right, so we have to wrap up. It's 32 past. Reach out to us on any of the social networks. Write to info@intea.lv. Write personally to me and Raivis. We'll see you next time. You'll find out when the next time is and what the topic is. Thank you for joining. And have a great weekend. And those of you who are in Latvia, a very great long weekend. Great.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.